So I thought I'd do something very, very different today. I'm gonna go ahead and I don't know if this video will get stricken or what, but I've seen other people do it, so I feel like it's okay. I'm gonna give my commentary on the commentary of the PBD podcast. I hope these guys get this message. I love the podcast. Pat reminds me of a good friend of mine. I don't know if it's because he's from the Middle East originally, from Mesopotamia, and he's Syrian and all that. I don't know where he gets his like grounded, sensible, calming vibes and narratives, but there's just something about him that's just very easy to listen to. He's wise but not obnoxious, and he just has a charm about him. Tom is also my favorite. I just love him as an analyst. I think he does a great job, and I'm not just trying to kiss their butt, but I'm just saying that I really enjoy the podcast, and I think what they do, along with obviously like Rogan and so many others right now, Tucker Carlson, what they do is very uh it's very important. It's more important than what they realize because they're not just producing content for themselves for their own wallets, but what they're also doing is they are allowing the expression, the freedom of expression, the freedom of speech, and they're allowing the river of freedom to flow. Because if you don't have these alternatives, then you're stuck with cable news, and we could do a whole episode on cable news. But anyway, I figured I'll jump in and talk. I'm gonna actually just pause and I'm gonna let it go on certain things, and I'm gonna comment on it. So if you want to watch the whole podcast, I guess I'll put a link to the in the description to the actual show itself. So you can watch it in its entirety, but this will not be that. This will be me responding to certain clips. All right, thanks.
Account. And if you go there, right there, go a little lower, right there. Okay. So that is officially where we are right now with how we feel things are going to end up. Okay. Key toss ups in Nevada, Michigan, Wisconsin, that could make it even higher. But as of right now, on vtnews.ai, you will see us being at 281 to 228. Here's what I want you to do. Go to vtnews.ai, Rob. If we go look at vtnews.ai, if you go to vtnews.ai, go to the right and type an election right there. Yes, 6 days left. Guys, go do your calculation. If you go to the bottom, Rob, and click on anything to show them how they feel like the numbers that can change, go a little lower, Rob, so we can see the numbers changing. No, Rob, the other, yeah.
There you go.
There you go. Zoom in a little so I can see the numbers.
Do Georgia and Arizona.
If you do Georgia and Arizona, all the way red, yeah. So you'll see how the numbers are changing at the top.
In Pennsylvania?
Yeah, guys, for some of you that are messing with this, it's down 281, right? So this thing can be done fairly early. I don't think Arizona's going to go that early, Tom. I think
VTnews.ai is actually pretty cool. I like how they show you where the source is, and what's the weighted influence on every news story that comes out, so you could see what outlet it comes from and whether that outlet is considered to be quote unquote liberal or conservative. The interactive map is also very cool. So you can just kind of figure out for yourself the electoral college. Now, I'd just like to point out that, I'm still not convinced that the storm states are as locked as they are making them out to be, because it is not clear to me in any shape or form that the infrastructure is there to ensure that everybody's vote will be counted. So I don't know why this is always kind of glossed over. It's like we're forgetting that they had these massive storms. I don't know about I want to believe it's going to be okay, but I'm not 100% sure. I'd also like to point out that I also don't see how some of these states, like I'm looking at New Jersey, for example, or New York, you know, these blue states, these very blue states, they're only blue because they have large blue hubs. So if you've ever been to like New York or New Jersey, most of the states are pretty mixed. It's more of a toss up, to be honest. It's not, if you're driving around New York State, if you're not in, Brooklyn, most of New York State, you could drive through areas where Republicans do pretty well, and there are a lot of Democrats. But the Democrats who do well throughout the state, they're not city AOC Democrats. They're not ones who can speak openly about sanctuary cities and having, high amounts of debt because money doesn't matter. We're talking about areas where the Democrats have to behave more moderately and behave more like Republicans and not the ultra even conservative or neocon Republicans, but really more like traditional fiscally conservative Republicans. And it's the same thing throughout New Jersey. In New Jersey, a lot of counties are a lot of Republicans. There's a lot of Democrats, but none of them are very extreme at all. They usually get labeled extreme during election times, but they're not very extreme. That's why they're able to manage the towns and manage their budgets and manage working with the police and all this and that. If all of the local area politicians behaved like the national politicians, there would be zero cooperation.
Arizona is going to be, they've already said they need 10 to 12 days of counting, right? They've already said that. Go ahead, Tom. You look like you want to say something.
Yeah, it's polls close at 7 p.m. Eastern, and 2 to 3 hours later, we're going to see Georgia, North Carolina, and Pennsylvania numbers, and it could be wrapping up.
Yeah, it could be done fairly quickly. But, this is, a lot of people are using this tool. We've never had this much.
I just want to say, like, it does seem like there are some states that are going to try to wrap up pretty quickly, and I hope that that's the case, and I hope that everybody's vote is counted. I am very disappointed with the lack of participation or the lack of awareness for the Libertarian Party this time around. But frankly, the most popular Libertarian in the country right now is Vivek Ramaswamy, and he's a Republican. So the Libertarians really screwed themselves. They had Trump at their own convention, but all that did was give a bump. If it was neutral, it was either neutral or gave a bump to Trump. It didn't do anything for the Libertarians. They didn't take advantage of having this guy, on their platform. When Trump goes places, he draws a lot of eyes, and they didn't take advantage of that, unfortunately. So, it's unfortunate that worked out as it did. I don't know what's going to happen with Chase Oliver, but I have a feeling he's going to have an irrelevant night. Even more so than usual.
Traffic on VTNews.ai. Guys, go subscribe to VTNews.ai. Use the AI portion of it.
Stop doing.
You're called an anti-Semite. You've been called an anti-Semite more than anyone else's table.
Yeah.
And people would sit there
you.
and no, by me. I never called you an anti-Semite. I mean, I'm not sitting here saying I don't.
I'm a supporter of the Palestinians. So I'm used to it.
Yeah, I hope your beeper doesn't go off. The thing is
Did
that
you just say I should die?
You should not.
No, I
Did
said,
you just say
no,
I should be killed?
No, I did not say that.
CNN?
No, I did not say that.
Hold on.
Did your guest just say I
No,
should
I
be
did
killed?
not.
Hold on.
On live TV.
I said I hope
Guys,
you're.
let me just stop.
You said you hope my beeper
doesn't
doesn't
go
go
off.
off.
You said I'm
Stop
a
that
supporter
right now.
Of the Palestinians.
Of Hamas.
Guys, let me
said
stop.
Palestinian.
Are you a supporter
Am I
of
what?
Hamas?
No, of course I'm not.
Palestinians
supporting
are
Hamas.
not.
Then I
Are
apologize.
you a
Ryan.
Then I
racist,
apologize.
violent person
Then I
inciting
apologize.
violence against me?
Ryan.
That's disgusting.
That is completely.
No, I apologize.
Good
That
job,
is
CNN. Let's
completely
have first
out
block
of
say the
context.
Muslim guy
You
should
know
be
that.
blown
Then I
up
apologize.
on
Then I
TV.
apologize.
Don't
Then I
say
apologize.
then I
Wow.
apologize. You literally.
Don't say
I thought you said
accused
Hamas.
him.
I apologize.
You didn't think I said
No.
Hamas.
Yes,
I
you
said I
did.
supported
Yes, I did.
Palestinian
Yes, I
rights.
did.
Why? Because when you hear
What's funny
Palestinian,
is
you
Rudy
hear Hamas.
Giuliani said this
No,
yesterday,
because-
so you're a great guest to
Listen.
be here
All
to
right,
defend
I
Rudy
told
Giuliani.
myself
Give me
I
one-
wasn't going to
give me-
entertain
give me one
nonsense
second.
today, and so at this point,
This is what we're in
I
now.
can't
This
do
is America in
Here's what
2024.
I will say.
Forget the
Here's what
racism.
That's right.
It's I should
That's
die.
right.
I didn't
That's-
say that.
So I just want to say, get off your fake outrage. All right, this is the kind of stuff that pisses me off and pisses off most of the people watching. First of all, I could care less that he said that because you're literally saying, if you don't want me to call you a Nazi, stop behaving like a Nazi. And then you're going to have fake outrage, and everybody has to coalesce around this poor guy's feelings because the guy said about the beeper that you should die. Well, what are you planning on doing with the Nazis? Have you ever heard of the Nuremberg trial? Do you think they give him a pat on the back and a debit card like they do with the illegals here? Do you think they sent them to get free housing and free cars? No, they got hung, they got shot. So what are you talking about, bro? You're going to come on this network and you're going to literally say, don't behave like a Nazi and we'll stop calling you a Nazi. How about you stop behaving like a Nazi? It's all projection, folks. It's all projection. Everybody that calls groups of people Nazis because they don't like their politics, they're the real Nazis. Everybody that says that someone's going to take away somebody's rights if they get into office, it's because they're taking away people's rights. Who authorized the DOD directive that allows for lethal force against American citizens on American soil? Who did that? That seems like a Nazi move to me. Who's the one that got caught through the Twitter files and through testimony from Mark Zuckerberg himself, who got caught pressuring social media to censor, to repress stories that would make them look bad politically? Who got caught doing that? I think that's a Nazi move. So you see, this is called projection. And by the way, you're going to say, stop behaving like Nazis, we'll stop calling you Nazis. Well, who's giving money to Nazis? Actual Nazis in the Ukraine right now, not neo-Nazis, okay, not neo-Nazis, but grandchildren of Nazis. You see, that's the misconception. Azov Battalion is the last living SS unit on the planet. Their grandfathers fought for the Wehrmacht. Okay? Their grandfathers. If you've ever been to Ukraine, who are the war heroes? Who are the statues for? Those were Nazis. Now, I understand that not everybody who fought for the Wehrmacht is an actual political party member Nazi. There were only 8 million Nazi political party members in a country, even in Germany alone, that had a population of about 80, 90 million people. Okay? That's like saying everybody in the American Air Force, Army, Marines is a Republican or a Democrat. They're not. Nazi is a political party. Nationalist, socialist. So when this guy says, stop behaving like Nazis and we'll stop calling you Nazis, my question to him is, you're from the political side that's literally giving money to actual Nazis. Maybe you should think about that.
Why did you say with my beeper?
So what did you mean?
What did you mean by the beeper?
So why is it?
You can
What did you mean by the
pause.
beeper?
Okay. So, Adam, thoughts on this?
Well, here's another joke, parody, sarcasm that gets.
Here comes the star of the show here, Adam. If there's one guy on this podcast that they could get rid of, it would be Adam. And I would replace him with Mike Benz.
It's taking way too literally, just like the Puerto Rico garbage situation. Look, hope your beeper doesn't go off. So you want to kill me, right? I can understand why you're making that connection. I just thought he was being funny and quick and just trying to mess around and antagonize the guy a little bit. But ironically, I love this conversation. Why? Because these are the types of conversations that you can't literally have in most countries that support Hamas, Hezbollah, these types of regimes. So at least the beauty of America, knock on wood, we still have free speech where you can get on mainstream media and advocate your side, even if you're supporting terrorists, whatever it is, and state your case. I think this is the beauty of America, that it doesn't exist in that part of the world.
Beauty, but the guy on the left, I honestly
Mehdi Hassan.
Mehdi Hassan, is he, when he's saying he's pro-Palestine, but is he like pro-Israel to the sea, all that chanting? Is that where he's at?
I can't speak for him, but I'm assuming he's used the phrase "from the river to the sea."
Okay. Well, what he was saying was, he goes, well, I'm supporting the Palestinian people. Him saying, well, did your beeper go off? Is basically saying, well, if you're that, then Israel's coming after you. That has nothing to do with him threatening his life. But these are the type of panels where it's 6-on-1. I wouldn't even go on this type of panel, but it's just a shouting.
Here's how I see this. That was a sarcastic, offhand comment that wasn't in perfectly good taste. But you know what? They loved it. They loved it because it allows them to be outraged, to be offended, to respond. Because when they don't have substance and we don't have positions that will stand up to the light of day and the bright light of scrutiny, then they need to be outraged. They love that concept.
It's no different than there's a 5 hour or there's a multi-hour rally with 6, 7, 8, 10 speakers, whatever, and they're talking about the economy and they're talking about war. They're talking about all these different serious subject matters. And the only thing that the national news media took away from that said rally was one joke by one comedian about Puerto Rico. Let that sit in for a second. There's no substance. Now, MSNBC, to their credit, they didn't just talk about the one joke. They went ahead and said, well, this is like the 1939 Nazi rally. There you go. So Tom is 100% correct. It's very typical of the people that have no substance. And this goes in every direction. Like, you saw this, you saw this especially when the neocons had their day in the early 2000s. If people questioned anything about, going to war in Iraq or Afghanistan, and said, "Hey, are we focusing on Osama bin Laden?" They would say, "Well, you're not an American. You're a sympathizer, right? You're with the terrorists." And now the left is doing that to everybody else, calling everybody a Nazi. It's an old playbook. You name call, you focus on nonsense. You can't question anything substantively. It's old and it's played.
Comment because it lets them say all the things that they want to say.
Yeah. By the way, talking about outrage, I'd like to see the Yankees be a little bit of an outrage, and I'll get into that here in a minute. But Rob,
or just energetic.
So check this out. CNN bans conservative. That guy's a conservative. Okay. CNN bans conservative guests for telling Muslim journalists, "I hope your beeper doesn't go off." Ryan Jurdisky clashed with British American. By the way, I don't know. Can you pull up who Ryan is? I'm sure he's a nice guy. Ryan, let's see who Ryan is.
When they got to cancel somebody, they're so excited.
He's a conservative, like it matters.
Ryan with multiple publications. NASA, that's being embarrassed by this guy named Elon. You got Boeing, that's literally can't survive with the stuff that they have going on, that they got to come beg you to say, we need money from you guys, and we need 24 billion of it because we're about to get another downgrade credit rating. Tom, what do you think is going to happen here? You think they're going to get the money? You think they're going to be able to get past this phase?
Boeing sells three things: commercial airplanes like you and I ride on, bombs, missiles, and defense airplanes like Air Force and everybody else, Navy, and then tons of spare parts for them. That's all they sell. Three things: people planes, warplanes, parts. That's what they do. And they own all these defense contractors. So Boeing's stock to go up. People planes, they had a strike, and the 737 MAX was crashing, and they had all.
Tom is about to give an example of cronyism. This is something I talked about in an earlier episode, and he's about to lay out an example of cronyism, and I just want everybody to pay attention here. The U.S. citizen, and this is where this connects what Tom is saying in this example of cronyism, directly connects back to the conversation that was had on the PBD podcast yesterday, or I guess on an episode the other day with Mike Benz. The American homeland is the citizens. The American empire are the large corporations and politicians and the military-industrial complex. This is where there's a separation and disconnect, because what Tom is going to lay out is an example of cronyism, where the citizens are putting up cash, putting up capital, and not getting a return on that capital. Maybe some people are benefiting. If you own Boeing stock, if you're an employee of Boeing and you have a high-paying job there. But if you're just like a regular person, and maybe even a regular low-level employee there, you're not benefiting from what he's about to lay out as an example of cronyism, and why the American electorate will accept a certain amount of cronyism as long as they can barbecue, watch baseball, go out to dinner, and have money to send their kids to college, et cetera, et cetera. But when those things are at risk and when they can't afford groceries, this is where the empire and the homeland clash, and where cronyism is not accepted by the electorate.
All that, yeah. And warplanes, if only they would support a candidate that would start foreign wars so the U.S. taxpayer could buy a lot of bombs and stuff from them and then drop those bombs somewhere and then call Boeing back and get some more bombs. That would save Boeing. If only they would support a candidate that would be in favor of causing trouble and terrassing around the world and
What was
Gosh.
the three things again? What was the three things again?
people planes,
Commercial planes,
warplanes, and lots of spare parts and all the support.
That's their business model. Those three.
Yeah, if you look at it, all the things they own is one of the two in those big buckets.
Right.
And missiles and bombs.
So
And
let me ask you a question. What causes, when you think about certain season that people buy a certain product, what event causes Boeing to get a lot of new customers?
well, let's watch this. A war. And then Pelosi gives a bunch of money to some guy who doesn't own a suit, but he owns a lot of gray and green comfortable clothes. You know who they were talking about?
Whoa.
From Ukraine.
Zelensky.
And when they give him the billions, he does two things. One, he buys
Cocaine.
he buys a Bentley.
Yeah, he does drugs.
And then where does that money go? It goes back to Boeing, and they buy bombs.
Oh.
Okay, this is worth repeating. What did he just say? A conflict arises or a war starts. And then Pelosi, meaning the power structure within one of the political parties or the uniparty, because they're both whatever, they give money in the form of our tax dollars, either by borrowing or printing the money that they don't have because they don't make any money. They borrow or print it. The U.S. taxpayer sends its own money that they don't have for American citizens here. They only have it for migrants here. They don't have it for us. They send that money overseas. It goes to a leader, and this is the corporate cronyism or the capitalism and cronyism that Ron Paul has talked about for many years. It's corporate welfare. And this has been talked about for many years. And I used to sometimes wonder, why does Ron Paul focus and bring everything back to our foreign policy? This is why. This is the whole thing. You take the money from the citizenry, from the United States, from the coffers of the American tax dollar, and you send it overseas. You send it over to Ukraine in this example, but we do this in a lot of countries. The leader of that country then siphons off his cut, right? Buys cars, house, whatever, does whatever he wants with it. The rest of that money, he then does he spend it on infrastructure for Ukraine? Does he spend it on roads and bridges for Ukraine? Does he spend it on schools for Ukraine? Does he spend it on aid for Ukraine? Does he spend it on... No. He spends it on buying things from American companies who just happen to have given financial support to the American politicians who signed off on sending those dollars to Ukraine in the first place. That's the cronyist system. That's not capitalism. So just so you understand, lobbyists in the U.S. or individuals who have a lot of money at these companies give money to a politician. That politician then sends that money to another country because there's something going on there that shouldn't have never started in the first place. That corrupt politician in the other country siphons off some of that cash for themselves and for their friends, then takes the rest of that money and buys things from us, but not from the citizens here. It doesn't benefit us. It goes right to the Boeings of the world, the Raytheons of the world, the Lockheed Martins of the world. and they then make profit off of what's going on over there. So Zelensky on his own doesn't have the cash to buy these things. The government can't just turn around and just buy directly. Now, they do have contracts, of course. Famously, Trump bragged about how when he was negotiating for the price of Air Force One, that he was able to save billions of dollars, right? So there are direct contracts, but that's not what's going on here. This is the politician in the U.S. in Nancy Pelosi is what Tom has referenced, sending our tax dollars to Ukraine. The leader of Ukraine siphoning off what he wants and then turning around and buying back from a large business here, aka Boeing. But remember, the reason that they're getting that money is because there's a facilitated event like a war, which is the excuse to send them billions of dollars we don't have to give. And then the reason that the companies get money back is because they lobbied the politicians or donated to those politicians' campaigns so that they could be in office in the first place. That's your cycle. The only people who get screwed are us. Welcome to the real world.
Weird.
And they fight the Russians. So some of your tax money that was going to Ukraine made a U-turn back to the United States until we stop that. Because during the election, we said, okay, stop giving all this money to Ukraine. That's what Boeing needs. Boeing needs war.
So do you think maybe these businesses would prefer not having a candidate that would want to negotiate a peace? And by the way, what he's talking about is just from the perspective of Boeing. He hasn't even gotten into what Mike Benz got into the other day on the PBD podcast, which was the fact that State Street, Vanguard, BlackRock, and all these other large banks have gone over to the Ukraine and bought up lots of assets. And you can't negotiate a peace now because if you negotiate peace now, you don't have all the land. So if you buy assets, aka you're buying land, but the Russians win the war, you don't have that land now. So now the United States has a vested interest in protecting its empire, which is the large corporations and the assets they have overseas, not the homeland, which is its citizens. You ever wonder why you have an open border, but the military is all the way in Uzbekistan or Ukraine or Germany? Why is the military everywhere but here? We have leaking oil. We have a hole in our southern border. We have open coastline where Haitian migrants and Chinese migrants, everybody just comes here illegally, no problem. Why do you think that is? Because our government isn't interested in protecting our border. We're interested in protecting other countries because we're guns for hire. Because our empire, meaning the large businesses that have all the influence and the politicians that have their assets overseas, they want to protect themselves. They have no interest in protecting our states. And they find a way to profit from illegal immigration, if not perpetrate it themselves.
Because
what else, though? What else aside from war?
Well,
what else aside from war?
They need commercial planes that work, and they need to successfully compete against Airbus.
Because here's the reality.
So when United Airlines says, I want to buy 5 planes, they don't buy Airbus planes, they buy Boeing planes.
This is very important for the average voter that's listening to this, Tom. What you're saying is very important. What event causes, and this is pretty bad to say this, but I want you to think about how business works. What event causes Home Depot and Lowe's to be absolutely emptied with everything they have in their stores?
COVID.
Earthquakes in California, wildfires in San Diego, hurricanes in Florida.
There you go.
Hailstorms in Texas.
So think about what just happened right there. So hurricanes, stock goes up for Lowe's and Home Depot because you need to go buy billions of dollars, especially if it's that damaging that's been lately. You got tornadoes, you got earthquakes, you got all this stuff that
all those fires in California.
All those fires in California. Home Depot's like, hey. So you're like, man, well, these guys' stock goes up when these types of things happen. If all of a sudden You look at when Trump was president, it was dry for war. That's not a good business model for them. So these guys need somebody that's going to go and create some havoc for them to make money. And then they're talking about, we don't want any war. We want
Oh, there it is.
this thing to be at peace. We want to do that. They're like, guys, we can't do that. We need money right now. We need you to buy some stuff from us right now. So it's a very strange.
Now, isn't that the sad commentary about the American economy? Oh, it's dry right now. Oh, we need you to buy stuff from us right now. Not, oh, we make toys, we make video games, we make computers, we make microchips, we make cars, we make microwaves, we make cables, we make all this stuff, and then we buy it from American businesses and it gets shipped by American companies and it gets delivered to American businesses who then also hire American people to then make things, and then their employees go out and they buy houses and they da. No, the new American economy is, oh, we need disasters in the U.S. domestically, and we need foreign wars overseas and corrupt politicians overseas to screw their country and our country over so that they can take the money that's been siphoned away from our country that doesn't have it, siphoned away to them so that they can take their cut and then purchase back assets or products from our companies that only sell to them and don't make enough money domestically because the American economy can't support it. Wow. That is not the economy the founders envisioned. When did all of this change? Well, you're starting to hear very important things come up in a back door. And that back door is you're hearing people talk about, and I'm not going to get into all of it, it'll come up naturally. But I'll just say you are hearing it come up where people are starting to look at what was our economy based around before 1913 and how has it changed after 1913 and after 1945. 1913, 1945, 1963, you could argue 68, and certainly 2001. Those are the dates that changed the United States forever, and not in a good way. Federal Reserve and federal income tax created changed the way the government made money. The government no longer relying on tariffs, no longer worried about domestic production, but more concerned with running the economy through the Federal Reserve and stealing your money through income tax. Okay. 1945, our Waterloo moment. The whole world frozen. The United States becomes the unchecked supreme leader of the world. What do? We make sure that other countries are rebuilt. We help them with their trade, and we start to slowly but surely hurt ourselves. But we rebuild the world. Very generous of us. The only problem is that the American citizen will only benefit over the next 15 to 20 years, whereas the American empire will benefit for the next 100 years or 80 years. 1963, JFK assassinated. By who? Probably by the same people that don't want certain other people to become president. What happens when JFK is gone? Probably an early end to the Cold War, out the window. Probably a guaranteed extension of a long war in Vietnam. Probably a civil rights bill is passed in addition to the one that was passed in 1957. But this time, what goes through is supreme control of large swaths of people within the United States by moving them into urban sectors where they are going to become dependent on the welfare state. 2001, what happens then? 9/11. And everything in this century is dependent on it. The Patriot Act is the backbone to everything that's wrong with the spy and surveillance state that we live in now. It's everything that's wrong with our foreign policy of this century, going into Iraq, staying in Afghanistan too long. It took lives. It took money. Yeah. So those are the dates that really need to ring in your head. Not 1776 and all that. That's a different America. That America was the America built by the founders, built on sound money, built on free trade. Yeah, we had slavery. Yeah, we have slavery now, literally, actually. So it's very important what they're talking about. They're touching on huge issues here.
Business model, the same as hospitals. Hospitals need sick people to make money. Empty beds don't make money for hotels, and empty beds don't make money for hospitals. And a peaceful society and a peaceful world doesn't make money for companies that sell weapons and planes and jets and stuff that you need to buy from them.
And take a good look at the board of directors in healthcare. It's a bunch of people that used to work in government, retired senators. Look who's on the board of directors at Boeing, retired senators, retired generals, retired people from the war side.
Well,
Adam, I'm sorry, not Adam. Adam's the worst. Tom, per usual, Tom, and yeah, he should smile because he's right on it. Tom nailing it right there. If you're looking at, and again, I have no problem with a little cronyism. I have no problem. I love capitalism. But what we're seeing is when you have people from government who then become members of the boards of large companies and they direct policy, and that policy has an inverse effect against the citizenry and the homeland, that's a problem. And yeah, you could survive with it for a little bit, but what you're seeing now is when the dollar has been crushed like it has with inflation, and inflation is the expansion of the money supply. It's not just rising prices. Rising prices is a symptom of inflation. It's like if you sneeze, it doesn't mean you have a cold. It could be because you have allergies, or you might have just needed to sneeze in that moment. But a cold is a cold, right? So in this case, what you're seeing is the dollar is being crushed by inflation. We don't have the supply issues we had 3 years ago. This has nothing to do with that. This is an absolute direct result of overspending and too much debt. But the policies that are driven by Washington are based on that stuff because they want to make sure that the companies who they're buddying up to and the countries who they're buddying up to, that they are able to facilitate the transaction that we just covered by Tom. So that's what's going on here. The issue is that the American citizen, because the American citizen can't buy groceries, that now there seems to be a conflict between the empire and the homeland. The two are not working together very well. And as the homeland gets angrier, the empire is coming up with ways to attack that said homeland. And one of the ways it's doing that is by threatening it with lawfare, threatening it with arrest, threatening to take away its freedom of speech. You see the pattern that's growing here? And by the way, I am talking enough that I can't cover this full episode. I'm not going to do full summary episodes of PBD or any news outlet or show. I'm going to do my summary based on things that I want to talk about in that moment. So I suggest you listen to the whole broadcast if you're interested in the whole thing. It's great. And I just appreciate the opportunity to be able to comment on these subject matters and give my opinions and my commentary. And feel free to do the same in the comments below. And if you have anything else that you would like me to take a look at and comment on, I would love to do that.
I kind of maybe have a different perspective.
Let's get it, Adam. We've been
Oh, here we go.
Fine. Because if you look at Boeing's stock price, it would actually kind of have to read into this a little bit because I think Boeing's stock price boomed under Trump because I think he increased defense spending. So if you just go by the last 10 years, Rob, I think Boeing's stock price went up right when Trump took office. So, but the whole thing with Trump is that he actually didn't create no new wars, right? So it's almost the impression that Trump was going to come in. People are like, oh, we gotta basically stock up on all this ammunition, although they didn't use it. So where Boeing, I think, went wrong was they were actually more concerned with keeping their stock price up. They're actually keeping their planes up. And they were creating value for the customer where they should have been, but they were more focused on creating value for the shareholder.
Bro, just do less coke, all right? Scale it back. Try to concentrate. As usual, rambling on, not making any sense. You know, he adds nothing to the show. I replace him with Mike Benz. I've said it a million times. Just replace him with Mike. This guy adds nothing. What are you talking about? Tom just laid out, and Pat is a genius moderator. He just made Tom draw out the absolute quintessential example of cronyism. And Adam comes along and goes, I disagree because the price went up. I wear glasses now to make myself look smart.
So this sort of whatever happened with Boeing is sort of a masterclass on how to mess up your company. And I think what they hired the CEO. How long has he been in there? I don't know, maybe 5 years. I don't know what it was, but he came in on this surge of growth.
Can you feel the air in the room just getting sucked out? Can you feel Pat literally rolling his eyes and getting pissed? I do wonder, why does he have him on this show? Does he owe him money or something? I mean, really, Pat. Like, let's take him outside and just get rid of this guy. I mean, come on.
Tim? No, he's the new CEO. I'm saying the guy that he was there before that, because basically they couldn't keep the CEO. I don't know if you can find that out. But there's something weird going on with Boeing. But Pat, speaking of the horrible bosses, basically what they're doing right now is, hey, can we get $20 billion in capital? No, we can't do it. All right, we'll just take a bag of peanuts and just see if we can keep this plane off the ground. But,
I did say that. But can you?
They're talking about, and I apologize, I skipped ahead. They're talking about Mark Cuban rejecting the idea of running for office or working in a cabinet. Tom believes that he will go back on his word if given the opportunity.
Argue against this and this and this and this and this.
Yeah.
I feel
Pat is also making the point in this part of the show that that there's a bunch of huge players on the right: Tulsi Gabbard, J.D. Vance, Vivek Ramaswamy, or Robert Kennedy. Basically, there's a bunch of people who are not part of the left, I should say. It's liberals, conservatives, libertarians who are superstars right now, outside of just Trump, so they could line themselves up to compete for office for many years to come. And on the other side of things, there's Mark Cuban and who? He threw out the governor of California. I would argue Nancy Pelosi's nephew, Gavin Newsom, is a lightweight. I would argue Josh Shapiro. There's something wrong if he wasn't picked to be VP right now. But anyway, that's what they're talking about.
compelled and someone has to step up, and that step is me.
Yeah, because these people are Hitler and they're Nazis, and I have to do it for America. It's like, give me a break.
I want to remain in an entrepreneurial role. I want to do this.
So to me,
can't.
Listen, if I'm telling you guys, if I'm on the left, that's a top 3 candidate for me.
Yep.
I'm talking to this guy and getting everybody to get comfortable with him running. I'm going to say, hey, Mark, you got to really plan on doing something 2028. If I'm on the left.
Yeah, of course.
I know people go, you're so crazy here. You think too highly of him. I think he's a formidable candidate.
And here comes Adam with another genius take.
On the left, if he runs. Rob,
I don't
see. This is you don't think he's a formidable candidate?
No, not the way that the Democratic Party is now being positioned.
Let me ask you, who do you think on the left right now is formidable?
Honestly, I'm just going to be straight up and real. Unless they're a woman of color, there's no place for you in the Democratic Party at the top of the ticket.
So if you say he's not, you see that you can't play that game.
I'm just telling you right now, the Democratic Party is now the party of the working liberal woman.
If you say no to Cuban and don't have a name, you don't have an argument. So either say a name.
They want a Kamala, they want an AOC, they want a Michelle Obama.
But I think you're wrong. Let me tell you why.
The Democratic Party is now the party of the working woman.
I'm going to tell you why.
The party of the working man.
I'm going to tell you why. Here's why. Do you know right now? Okay, so watch this story here. Where's the story? Kamala Harris has more billionaires prominently backing her than Trump. Bloomberg gave her $50 billion. When you look at the billionaire list.
So Pat's going to go ahead and give you the billionaires who are supporting Kamala, and his point here is just that the apparatus of the Democratic Party, the people who support them financially, are basically going to call them out after this election and say this didn't work. And the guys like Jamie Dimon, Mark Cuban, the people who are who normal people could actually look at and relate to from a standpoint that they're not woke leftist politicians, but they're successful businessmen. Those are going to be the future of the Democrats, not the woke leftist DEI, type candidates. The days of looking at somebody and just say you're a colored woman and that's going to put you across the finish line, it's just not enough. It's not enough because DEI in itself, and a lot of companies are phasing out those departments and just moving some of those people into HR or getting rid of them because it's a loss leader, but not in a good way. How they have, how in a restaurant they'll have a loss leader like a hamburger or something like that maybe they actually don't turn a profit on, but it brings people in so that they can get them to buy drinks and other things. That's what the Democrats were using identity politics for in a lot of ways. Kamala is the ultimate loss leader, but actually maybe she's not, because if she doesn't bring other people up on the ticket, even if she loses as president, but if she loses and the senators and they lose the Senate and they don't take the House, then that's a triple loss in a lot of ways. Whereas you had a Jamie Dimon, he could compete with Trump because he can say, I'm as successful as you are. Maybe, okay, I didn't start JP Morgan, but I am as respected in the business world as you are. We come from different parts of the business world. I can speak to all the things that you can speak to. And I'm not a woke leftist, so I can go talk to mom and pop shops in small towns all over the country and communicate with them. And that's something that can't be done by Kamala Harris. She's not connecting. And Tim Walz isn't a good pick because he's not connecting either. Him and his wife, they're just too weird, and they're not able to connect with regular people. I don't know if they're just hopped up on stuff or what, but and it's a shame too because I feel like somewhere in there's just nice people, but they're just not connecting. And I think part of it is just that there's an arena that they play in. And I don't think it's the correct arena to connect with regular people across the whole country. I think in another world, Tim Walz and his wife could do very well. I even think Kamala could do well, even if she wasn't the most substantively strong candidate. Like, she's not going to explain debt financing. She's not going to be able to negotiate with other countries. But she's a very pretty woman. She's articulate enough, and she certainly has a social climbing intelligence about her. She picked Willie Brown for a reason. She picked Montel Williams for a reason. It's not a coincidence. She knows what she's doing. Because there's something in there that works. And maybe if you put her in a room with V and Putin, maybe she could wrap herself around them and trick them and get them to give us what we want. That part of her isn't coming out. Whatever her strength is, I don't see it. And it's killing them. So they're gonna look for a return on their investment because remember, all the donors are giving lots of money. Kamala has had $1 billion donated, and she might lose. Trump has had like a quarter of that, maybe less, and he might win.
Is a formidable candidate for the left, and they will find a way to get behind him and sell him. He's a very formidable candidate for the left. They got to find a way to make sure he's out there. By the way, again, watch how disconnected the vice president's wife just said this. Okay? The vice presidential nominee.
Tim Walz's wife.
Tim Walz's wife.
Oh, yeah. This is brutal.
Just said this about why they allow tampons in male bathrooms. You tell me if this connects with you. This is potentially the VP's wife, soon to be. She's trying to make sense of her argument. Are you buying her argument? Go ahead, Rob.
If kids are hungry in school, what that does to brain and learning, you're not going to learn to read. So if you're talking about learning to read and closing gaps, then you better take away the barriers for that. If that's tampons, then that's tampons.
What the hell does that even mean?
Dude.
Try not to laugh because she's being serious. Yeah, that's the look. She's saying that boys having tampons in boys' bathrooms takes away a barrier because when they're in the bathroom, they can read what's on the tampon, and therefore it's helping them to learn how to read. Why are tampons in the boys' bathroom? Yeah, Pat, I don't know. This is one of those things where you talk about the arena they're playing in. Somebody somewhere, if not them on their own, somebody said this is a good idea because of X. I can tell you that most places and most people are not comfortable with this because it's stupid and because it's crazy. It's not gender affirming, it's actually gender disaffirming because you're mixing up the genders and you're doing it on purpose. My son doesn't need a tampon, and I don't need to have this in a boy's bathroom, especially a 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 12-year-old boy's bathroom. There's no reason for it. If you're saying that, well, we're going to have transgendered girls and they're going to go into boys' bathrooms, so they need tampons in there, I think we have a whole nother issue. Transitioning is not something that should be done to children unless they are given parental approval. And even with that, you cannot put tampons in the boys' bathroom to accommodate somebody who has transitioned their child. If you want to give them tampons to take with them, then maybe that's your prerogative. But these are the kinds of things that just are not going to play well when you're talking to people who are struggling to buy groceries. And for me to say that the arena that you come from, that this is viable, this is why a lot of people are leaving the Democratic Party, because that's not an arena I want to be in. I'm a libertarian. I'm all for individual rights, individual liberty. But I can't realistically get behind any of that stuff. I want people to be comfortable, and I don't judge them. If you want to be whatever you are, I'll call you whatever you want. You can do whatever you want, as long as it doesn't harm anybody. I'm somebody who believes in defense, not aggression. So I'll leave you alone, you leave me alone. But you're not leaving me alone if you're putting boys in my son's bathroom.
But by the way, play that one more time. Like,
yeah, I'm not going to play it one more time, Pat. I'm going to skip ahead.
He's in front of an audience.
I was talking.
Oh yeah, sorry.
Excuse
sorry,
me, Tom.
Kamala.
Excuse me.
Did you see this, PBD?
Tampon Tom.
She's at a
Excuse me.
crowd and she stumped. She starts telling the audience to all shut out their names. This is how bad she is.
If this is real,
this is
and
real.
This one hurts.
And not manufactured. This is horrible.
PBD, have you seen this? This isn't manufactured.
I still
Why
need to
would
make
you
sure
do
this is
this?
real.
Why would you do this at a rally? Go ahead, Rob. Kamala. Watch this. Yeah. Thank you. Oh my God, thank you. Yeah.
Okay, now I want each of you to shout your own name. Do that.
Is that real?
John!
Because it's about all of us. It's about all of us. And listen.
That can't be real.
That's 1,000%
If
real.
I
that's
couldn't hear
real,
it because you
that
were
is
screaming.
horrible.
Go back.
Go back.
Let
I'm
me
sorry.
hear it. Not all the way back. Please don't do that,
just
Rob.
now shout your
Right
name.
there. It's
Yeah,
good.
yeah,
Go.
yeah. Sorry,
go.
Pat.
Okay, now I want each of you to shout your own name. Do that. Because it's about all of us.
Okay.
It's about all of us.
Sorry.
Listen, I have fought my
These-
whole career.
That is the sound.
Oh, dude, from a middle class family. Middle class family. Oh boy. Oh boy.
Detroit, Milwaukee, Philly, Pittsburgh.
So they're talking about whether Kamala will do the Rogan interview or not. Here's my take. 25-30% chance she does it. Only reason, J.D. Vance is going to do Rogan. Trump did Rogan. And she was the one that was supposed to do Rogan first, hasn't done it. The campaign is trying to make it seem like it's Rogan's schedule that's the problem. The reality is that she will have to do Rogan. If Joe Rogan puts it out there that he is wide open for her, then she will have to do it because they cannot be perceived as backing away from it. It's a perfect audience for her. There's a lot of independents, there's a lot of liberals, and there's a lot of young men who watch the Rogan podcast. So that's what she wants. So she has to do it for those reasons. But she doesn't want to do it. If she gets boxed in, she'll do it. But 3 hours with Rogan is the polar opposite of every interview she's ever done in her entire life. It's going to be difficult. But if Trump does it and then Vance does it, it's trouble for her.
And all preceding a closing argument speech in D.C. together didn't even equal the.
No, they did.
Okay.
They're like, hey, listen, Biden's out.
Film that was she faked the call because at that very moment Biden was actually on the.
All right, so now they're talking about Bezos, and Pat is just reading the statement from the Post and why they didn't do an endorsement of Kamala.
200,000 people unsubscribed from WAPO following the decision to endorse Tom.
So I read this today, got here early, and actually Rob and I read it together, and the whole thing. And I thought it was well written, and I thought it was really accurate. And he basically pointed out that the time for newspapers to have the influence on citizens in elections is gone. That the local citizenry is not waiting to get guidance from their newspaper and a rationale for it, number one. Number two, he said, hey, man, nobody trusts the news media. And then he said, listen, this is our moment. This is what we have to do. We have to basically reform ourselves and grow from this point in time in history, not just this presidential election, from this time right now, 2024. People don't trust the news. So what do we got to do about it? We have to accept the challenge and move from here. And endorsing one or the other candidates doesn't matter to the voters. It absolutely statistically doesn't matter. And so he laid it out. And so I read it and I thought, good for you, Jeff. He's sitting there stating the facts and refusing to be bullied by people that are stuck in the past. Even if those people happen to be some of his own employees, he's like, hey, dude, you can threaten me and you can quit. Okay, do it. I own the paper. I have to make the shot. I have to call the shot. I can live with the shot. I can die with the shot. It doesn't matter. One or the other is going to happen to me. But guess what? I'm making the shot and I'm the owner. And if you want to leave, you got to leave. But
I just looked up how many it says. They got 2.5 million subscribers and they lost 200,000.
That's a lot.
Liz Cheney was one of them. Yeah.
Real. Oh, there goes the neighborhood.
People are posting that they're unsubscribing and leaving WAPO. He just lost 8% of everybody that left.
Now, I love the analogy, and I love the analysis. I love how everything was put together. But what's happened here is that Bezos is making a calculated decision. He is not just the owner of the Washington Post. He's the owner of the Washington Post and of Amazon, and he has other business ventures. So he's thinking, I may lose 8% of the Washington Post by not making a formal endorsement. Make no mistake about it. He has made every inclination, every suspicion, every hint validated by his actions of the newspaper that his politics are not aligning with any Republican, especially not Donald Trump. He is absolutely a liberal to leftist, okay, a progressive. But one thing I will say about Jeff Bezos is it's clear that he is more interested in his own business than he is in politics. And unlike maybe his ex-wife, but what I see from Jeff is that he doesn't want to risk, he's going to lose 8% from the Washington Post, but he is going to protect the overall empire that he has by not making that formal endorsement. Because there may be something that he needs business-wise. There may be something that he needs contract-wise. He doesn't want to have to deal with the repercussions of aligning wholeheartedly against potentially the next president. It's not as if he's endorsing Trump. It's not as if he's helping anybody, but he's clearly financially supportive of the Democrats. And he's obviously been a guy who's been critical of Trump, and his newspaper has gone after him over and over and over again. So what I see here is not somebody who is breaking from their values, but someone who is making a decision for their business. And it's a calculated risk, but it's one that he's looking at the net of protection against Amazon and the Washington Post and everything else he's interested in doing is worth more than one endorsement, even if that costs him 8%. And by the way, and this shows you how frivolous the left can be at times, and I guess the right too, and this is why being an ideologue is draining and stupid. A guy who's been supportive of the Democrats for years, a guy who's been supportive and has gone after Trump, a guy who bought a newspaper and has kept it afloat at a time when people don't read the newspaper. And as soon as he doesn't make an outright endorsement for Kamala, all these employees and all of these readers decide they don't want to read his paper anymore. Are you childish and naive? You can tell that you're dealing with people in the room that are children and not capitalists, because they can't see the forest from the trees. They can't see it from his perspective. They need him to reaffirm his support over and over again. Otherwise, he's part of the problem. How can you possibly critique this guy? That's like the way the progressives hate Musk, even though Musk has been the leader in the renewable energy or the alternative energy business. Nobody has done more for that than Elon Musk. And yet he isn't even invited to a summit to talk about Green New Deal energy options. He's not given the opportunity to get contracts from the government for Starlink. I mean, that's how childish the left-wing political apparatus really is. Are you kidding me, guys? Grow up. And trust me, the right wing does it too. I'm not vindicating them either. Like, they have this foolish, childish narrative of like what it means to be a real conservative. Like George Will, we got to be a real conservative. We can't allow anybody to do anything. Come on, guys. Give me a break. It's just nonsense. Jeff Bezos doesn't have to reaffirm anything for anybody. He's been a great friend to the progressive cause, and he should be given a lifetime pass for how much he's given to them. So I just think it's all a bunch of nonsense, and hopefully, I mean, look, I'm not rooting for him personally, but I think he has a good business in Amazon. So I just feel like it makes sense. He's thinking like a businessman, not a politician. And that's the difference between a politician and a businessman. Businessman thinks maximum profit. He's looking at, I'm going to lose 8% in subscribers, but I'm going to gain in the long run, and maybe even in the next, couple of months or the next quarter or two, because I'm not going to put myself in a position where I'm angled against directly the next president. And at the same time, I can't do much more than what I've done for this party, and really haven't gotten much in return. And I think a lot of people probably can share that sentiment.
Is that like? Here's my question: do you think? I don't know about him and his attitude. Like,
all right, well, this has gone on pretty long, so I'm going to wrap it up. Like I said, this is something new for the channel. Doing commentary on podcasts that I enjoy, other news. If I see anything else on YouTube or in the news that I want to comment on, that I can do some commentary on, I will go ahead and do that. It's what I think is great about YouTube and about these kinds of platforms. I think it's awesome that there's a place for people to be able to share content and have some insight, and to be able to have, comments and commentary on things and really use the freedom of speech that we have in this country. So I think it's awesome. And I love these podcasts because I can read through the news, but maybe I'll miss something or miss a topic, and they might bring up something that I'm not thinking about, and it forces me to think about it and come up with some kind of, either do research or come to a conclusion on my own. And I think that's great. So, even with Adam on here, who I don't know. I mean, I'm sure maybe he's a cool guy, but I just think he provides the least to that broadcast. Vinny is the heart and soul. Pat is the brains, and Tom is just such a great analyst and does such a great job of siphoning through all the data and coming up with good conclusions for them and summaries for them. So yeah, interesting stuff. A lot going on. There's going to be a lot going on for the next week and a half or week, I guess, as we get towards election day, and then keep rolling along. And just happy to be here and talk about it. And we'll continue to do things like this. And feel free to share. All right, thanks everybody. Appreciate it.